If you asked me what my favorite book series is, I'm always gonna say Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And with The Last Straw getting its own movie on Disney+, I'm going to talk about the live-action Diary trilogy, and no! In the first film, we're introduced to Greg, our main high-on-himself middle schooler. Then we have Greg's family, Frank, his dad who's done with family, and honestly just being alive. Susan, his mom, who's probably the most sane person left in the household. You'll see why later. Manny, who's only 3, but acts like a literal... And Rodrick, the GOAT of these movies. I swear, he is literally the best character. The movie literally opens with Rodrick pranking Greg into thinking he overslept when it's actually 4 a.m. like a legend. Greg tries to explain it was Rodrick, but then we see the middle school and it's exactly how every student describes school. We also meet Rowley, my second favorite character, and honestly the only sane person in this whole trilogy. Don't even get me started on Fregley. Then of course the cheese shows up. You all know the cheese story by now, but seriously, why would anyone even touch that thing? After that nightmare of a first day, Greg and Rowley find Rodrick's old yearbook and Rodrick catches them and threatens to kill Greg. You gotta love him.
Only death.
Greg then needs to pee, but thankfully he makes it to the toilet and where love begins and never ends. Together at heart.com. We're here for you. After that beautiful family bonding, Greg decides he wants to become the most popular kid in middle school, which goes about as well as you'd expect. Then he tries to transform Rowley into a second Greg, and yeah, trust me, that's the last thing the world needs right now. Halloween night arrives, and Greg and Rowley get chased by teenagers for I don't even know why. But honestly, the teenagers are the least horrifying part of that night. A few other, not too important things is Greg and Rowley joining the safety patrol, and then Winter shows up, and... Suddenly though, Rowley is now super popular with all the ladies, and Greg is just Greg about it. It gets worse when Rowley unintentionally dominates over Greg with Zoo-wee Mama! But then Rowley gets suspended for something Greg did, and surely Greg will be good enough of a friend to tell the truth, right? Right? Greg finally does tell Rowley the truth, and Rowley does what he should have done long ago, which is obviously find a better friend. Shouldn't be too hard. Greg realizes actually he has no other friends, so he goes to the only kid his age he knows, and honestly, loneliness might have been a better option. After more trauma, Greg enters the school play, he's a tree, and Rodrick becomes the GOAT forever after this. And then Greg and Rowley have a final battle, basically, and the teenagers actually return, and... Thankfully though, Greg actually does something selfless for once and takes the blame for eating the cheese, and Greg and Rowley are good friends again. This was honestly a strong start, but might be my least favorite of the trilogy, but the next one. Oh yeah. The film begins with Greg and Rowley at a roller skating rink. Anyway, Greg meets Holly Hills, the love interest, and immediately imagines a whole future with her, like any boy would, but to achieve that dream, he actually has to talk to her first, and it doesn't go well. Susan then introduces mom books to pay Greg and Rodrick to spend time together. We also hear about a talent show with a $1,000 prize, and Rodrick is psyched. Yes! Back at school, Greg finds out Holly goes there, and then Rodrick, being the best big brother ever, picks Greg up from school. Every kid needs this kind of ride home. At home, Manny gives Greg an apology gift for ruining his game, and we know there's something sinister behind it. At church, Greg makes an unfortunate discovery. And of course, Holly is there, so Rodrick takes full advantage of this, but church is a place where we can all be calm and forgiving. Oh shoot! Susan is officially done with the boys and leaves them home alone for the weekend, and Rodrick immediately decides to throw a party. What a legend. After the chaos, Manny gets sick, of course, and the boys have 1 hour to clean the entire house. Don't ask me how they did it, but somehow they did. Rowley then comes over for a sleepover, and they watch a movie called The Foot. I don't like it, I don't like it! Susan eventually discovers the lock is missing though, and Greg immediately snitches, but manages to twist it into a "this will help me and Rodrick bond." Genius. Then Rodrick and Greg hang out for a night and actually get along until they get home. Oh, poop. Frank is also losing more of his sanity. Greg and Rodrick are punished, and Rodrick isn't allowed to perform at the talent show. Oh, and the boys get dumped at their grandpa's retirement home, but Holly's there, and Greg actually talks to her like a champ! The parents also force Greg and Rodrick to attend the talent show, which... that's just mean. Rodrick also discovers he's being replaced in his band, and that's just completely unfair, but Greg actually does something selfless again and volunteers to be Rowley's magic assistant so Rodrick can perform. And the performance? Yes! Yes! So in conclusion, Rodrick Rules is way better than the first one, mainly because of Rodrick. Dog Days opens at the town pool, where Greg's voice is suddenly super deep. Also, maybe don't be eating anything while watching this scene. Ugh. We also learned that a school called Spag Union can turn a troublemaker into the nicest guy ever, which gives Frank some ideas. Uh-oh. Also, it's the last day of school, and Greg decides to get Holly's number. I mean, who wouldn't want her number? Also, Rodrick is in love with Heather Hills, Holly's older and way awful sister. Summer starts, and Greg does what any kid does, and Rodrick's sleeping on the couch like a legend. To avoid Frank, Greg tries to look like he's been active, and Frank figures it out and has officially lost it. Run. Run! Thankfully, Susan, again being the only sane one left in the house, tells Frank to spend more time with Greg. Oh no. They try fishing, it ends instantly. The next day, why? They do a Civil War reenactment, and Greg is then invited to a country club with Rowley, and Holly's there, again, but hey, I'm not complaining. Greg also lies about having a job there to dodge a summer internship, and seeing how proud Frank is, yeah, that hurts. Greg and Rowley then play tennis. One of the best scenes. Also, Frank's neighbor suggests getting a dog to teach responsibility. Oh shoot, Frank also gets really attached. Rodrick, however, is a secret genius and figures out Greg doesn't actually have a job, so Greg sneaks Rodrick into the country club so he can see Heather. It goes about as well as you'd expect. Greg then goes on vacation with Rowley's family to ride the cranium shaker. Greg then slowly loses his sanity, so Greg sneaks back into the country club actually and discovers Rowley lied and his parents don't want Greg back into the country club. I don't even know why. Then Greg tries a very tall diving board and rips his shorts off. Then Greg finds out Heather's Sweet 16 needs a DJ, so Greg, being selfless yet again, gets Rodrick to perform. Everything starts going well, Greg and Rowley are friends again, but then Frank discovers Greg lied. It's so painful. Greg is terrified he's going to Spag Union. Can't blame him. Greg's last hope is a wilderness weekend, and things go amazingly. Frank is truly done with life. After a disastrous problem with another troop, Greg makes another selfless act and takes the blame, and Frank decides not to send him to Spag Union. A genuinely heartwarming moment. Heather's birthday arrives, and she's... Why does Rodrick like her again? But now it's once again Rodrick's time to be the legend he is! Heck yeah! Also, Dog Days is an epic conclusion to the trilogy. I really liked how there was a lot of character development, unlike the books, with Greg and even Rodrick. Good thing the fourth movie just throws it out the window. Now we're on the long haul and no! Yep, they recast everyone because the kids were too old. And confession time, the first diary book I ever read was The Long Haul, and the first movie I ever watched was The Long Haul, and I liked it. I know, shame on me, I didn't know any better. And looking back, how did I ever enjoy this? Susan, played by Alicia Silverstone in her second fourth movie that's trash, announces they're taking a road trip to Mima's 90th birthday. Also, Greg is a baby in this movie. He's so whiny, and he just sounds like he's 5, completely overreacts to holding a diaper, and now he's a meme, and Rodrick is ruined. No disrespect to the actor, but the character becomes an utter moron. And Greg's favorite YouTuber is Mac Digby. Greg thinks appearing in one of his videos will stop people from calling him diaper hands. I don't see how that changes anything or how that'll ever work. Max sends Greg a simple copy-paste reply saying he'll be at a convention, and Greg uses the trip to try to get there. Is this plan realistic? No. Is the movie painful so far? Yes. Susan also bans electronics. Greg whines. They stay at an awful motel, but hey, they referenced Zooey Mama, so that's one positive. Greg convinces Rodrick to come to the convention by promising a cash prize and gamer girls. I sound like Frank. Greg also meets the Beardo, the villain of this movie. They stop at a fair, Manny wins a pig, Beardo chases them, and Greg pukes on the ride. Why are they showing this in slow motion? Greg pees in a bottle because of course we need more potty humor. The rest of the trip... Let me just say, the new Frank, he's alright. He tried. He'll never beat the original, but he tried. They get rid of the pig. Greg reroutes the GPS so he and Rodrick can sneak to the convention, and... Then, to avoid a long line, Greg sneaks behind Mac Digby. How does no one notice this? Greg does ruin Mac's record attempt. Susan shows up. She's cheesed, and of course more chaos happens afterwards. And funny enough, the Beardo family just starts stealing their stuff off the road. Like, why? What is this dude's problem? Why does he hate Greg so much? They do find the family and steal the keys, get their stuff back, and Greg gets trapped in a bathroom while the Beardo takes a poop, because why not? And then they decide to spoof Psycho. Whatever. They finally get to Mima's house and decide to roll the van down the hill instead of just walking. But hey, they got the pig back. I will forever wonder how I liked this movie. The cast isn't all bad. They tried. Alicia Silverstone is probably the best actor here, even if that still needed work. The new Frank is probably my favorite of the new cast, but he will never touch the original. I will always love the original trilogy. Perfect cast, perfect vibe. The Long Haul... it's there. Let me know in the comments what you think of this trilogy. Click this video right here. YouTube thinks you like this one the best. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys!